Lejla, please tell my story. I met my boyfriend when I was 23. I honestly thought he was the loveliest guy. He seemed nice, polite, kind, caring. Even my family had the same opinion of him. But this didn't last very long. Looking back now, I thought that by staying I was doing the best for me and my son. But I know in actual fact, it was more damaging for us in the long run. When I found out I was pregnant, he immediately denied that the child was his. He called me every name under the sun, insinuating that I had slept with someone else. He caused me so much stress in the beginning of my pregnancy that I suffered from cramps, and I was always fearful that something was going to happen to our baby. He soon started to pressure me into moving in together. I wanted to have a family unit, but in the beginning, I said no. I had my doubts and I wasn't sure if I was ready to take that step with him. So of course, I continued to receive verbal and emotional abuse because of it. Eventually, I gave in to his demands and we found a home together. I was on a good salary at the time, but my bank account was slowly draining as I would be the one to pay for all the household bills, the rent, the food shopping, on top of all of my additional bills. I also bought everything we needed for the baby. He didn't pay for a single thing because he was adamant that it wasn't his. I was working full-time, living on hardly any sleep and expected to do everything in the house. I was exhausted, and every time I asked him to help out, a barrage of verbal abuse would ensue. I had my hair pulled, my throat grabbed, and pushed so hard that I was struggling to breathe. I was spat on, punched, chased around the house so that he could let me know he wasn't going to let me get away with it lightly. I would always attempt to try and hide in the bathroom because I wanted to protect me and my baby. But he would open the door with so much force that the lock would bend out of shape. Sometimes he would play tricks on me and make me think that he'd gone downstairs. But really, he was just hiding, waiting for me to open the door. One day, I opened the bathroom door to let myself out, and he punched me full force in the mouth, cutting it open, and then he spat on me. I remember shouting at him, telling him to go away, but all he said was, "Shut your mouth. Look at the state of you. Why would anyone want you, you fat, ugly slag?" My heart broke. How could someone claim to love me and still do this to me? And I covered it all up. I was ashamed to admit that I was being abused. And I believed that he would change. Every time he did it, I thought that this would be the last and it wouldn't happen again. But I was so wrong. He didn't once support me through my pregnancy either. Even when I had some bleeding in my second trimester and feared that I was having a miscarriage. And the abuse happened so often that I've blanked most of it out of my memory now. My life became a complete nightmare. There were some months where I'd just be left with £5 after the bills, nappies and baby milk. I couldn't even afford to put petrol in my car. But he still had his 2 vehicles and all of his own money. Once I gave birth, the jealousy immediately started. I was a new mum. I was so tired. I was doing everything, cooking, the cleaning, day and night feeds, nappy changing, baths. I was lucky to have a 10-minute shower to myself. But according to him, I was neglecting his needs as a man because I was too busy fussing over the baby. And what should have been one of the happiest times of my life, full of mum and baby bonding, was all stripped away from me because of his abuse. Once, whilst I was in the kitchen holding my baby, trying to make a bottle for him, he started having a go at me for not being intimate with him anymore. I explained that I wasn't interested and that I needed time, but it wasn't good enough for him. He pulled my hair so hard he forced my neck back. The pain was horrendous. He got in my face and started spitting as he was shouting at me. He said it wasn't fair that I was treating him this way. I told him that he was hurting me and all he did was pull harder. I asked him to stop, so he told me to shut my mouth and say sorry. Whilst crying in pain and scared that my less than 7-day-old son would get hurt, I just said it, but it didn't stop. He started pushing me and I tried to escape, but I couldn't get away. He followed me into the bedroom and I fed my baby whilst he stood over me, and wherever I went in the house, he followed me. I went into the bathroom to wash my face and he just continued with his verbal abuse. I told him to get out and leave us alone, and he told me that he was my worst nightmare and that he wasn't going anywhere. Then, he grabbed me by my throat and pushed me up against the wall. He asked me again why I wasn't interested and punched me in the head. I went dizzy, but he just continued to spit on me and pull my hair. After the attack, he just acted like nothing had happened. One time, in another argument, he smashed a glass of water over my head, and I just remember being so worried about the cuts and my injuries. We eventually moved home and I was hoping for a fresh start, but the attacks were relentless. The bruises, the pain, I won't ever forget it. Some attacks were so bad that every single movement I made afterwards hurt. After one incident though, our new neighbours came to speak to me the next day. I was worried. I didn't want anything to be reported. But eventually, I gained the strength to speak out. I told a neighbour what I was going through, but I was still so scared of leaving and breaking up my family. We ended up in serious financial difficulty as I didn't have a job anymore, but my boyfriend refused to pay the rent or the bills, and I had to move back in with my parents. And on our first family holiday, he attacked me so badly that I was covered in bruises on my arm and back, and I had lumps all over my head. When we got back to England, I thought I had the strength to walk away, but it wasn't long before he got into my head again. He made me think that we needed to be together as a family, so we moved in together again, but nothing had changed. No matter how much he promised he wouldn't do it again, or that he wouldn't be so controlling with money, it didn't matter. Wherever we moved, the violence continued, and it happened in front of our son too. I couldn't do anything to stop it from happening. No matter what, every incident was always my fault. He would often try and provoke me by saying things like my dad should die from his heart condition, or he would taunt me about my younger brother's disability. He would also deprive me of sleep by not letting me go to bed when I wanted to, or by taking all the bedding for himself. He even told my mum once how much he hated her and my family. I wanted to leave him, but I would just find myself going back and forth until one Sunday when he attacked me again after accusing me of cheating on him. I could see that there was no talking him off the edge this time, so I tried to remove my son from the room, but he just got in between the two of us and tried to plead with my boyfriend by saying, "No, Daddy. No, Daddy." I had never seen him look so frightened before. I grabbed him and ran upstairs. He followed me and pushed me into the door frames. I told him I was leaving, that there was no way I was going to stay so that he could hit me again. I texted my mum and I explained to her not to ring me and that we were trapped in the bathroom. As I started packing my bags, he was taunting me again about the number of women that he had slept with whilst I was pregnant and telling me that I was fat and ugly. He said that what he really wanted to do was to kill me, and that if our son hadn't have been there, he would have done it. As I was trying to leave the house, he pushed me into the hallway wall, smashing my back again. My son ran for the door as soon as it was opened, and I managed to get us both into the car and away from him. I have now been through 3 years of police interviews and criminal courts, where he got away with it because the judges couldn't define what controlling, coercive abuse was. The police did everything they could to keep us safe, and I had a great detective who knew I was telling the truth. But it was the justice system that let me down. We have been through family courts too, where he was denied access to our son and a resident court order was put in place. What he did to me and my son was not what a partner or a father should do. And even though I didn't get a conviction, this will always be on his name with the police, so if he ever gets arrested again, he won't get away with it. I'm adamant that he will never have control over me ever again. So please, ladies, don't ignore red flags. Please get help and get out. Please speak out against your abuser to the police and the courts like I did.